Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda. I'm the CEO and co-founder of AI for Education. Cannot believe this is the 23rd webinar we have done this year on AI and education. It's our Launchpad series, and I am so excited to be here today with such an amazing panel of experts and amazing women as well about this important topic around AI and social emotional learning with a real focus on mental health. We all know that we are in a mental health crisis with our young people and also with our teachers. We have an enormous amount of social isolation as we have impacts that are post-COVID fatigue that are a part of our lives, unfortunately. We have new and like difficult safety issues that happen. We have our teachers experiencing burnout at rates like never before. And we have this brand new thing that's almost a year old. If you're actually here from outside of the US, it's probably already ChatGPT 3.5's birthday. And so we have this brand new thing called AI that is a real question. And I think we're going to talk about this, the on balance of like, is AI a good thing or a bad thing? Or is it somewhere in the middle when it comes to students' mental health and well-being? So I want, as we always say, and thank you so much for the people that have already said hello. We've got, Georgia, Michigan, we've got Oregon. We have so many great people, Singapore. I'm sure we always have like one person that's like 3 o'clock in the morning. Please go to bed. I promise this will be recorded, but we're glad to have you here. Please get involved with your colleagues. I already see that we have such a great, we already have people that are working in and around mental health and well-being. So please make sure to get involved. This community that exists inside of our AI for Education webinar series is one of our favorite things. So what we want you to do is really get involved. We also have a brand new set of AI prompts for our prompt library that Margot has led the charge on and Christiane has submitted as well. So I want you guys to prompt along with us and to use these tools so that you can start thinking about how you apply them into your practice. And then finally, if you have a great resource, please share. We'd love to be able to do this with you all. And the final thing is, this is our Launchpad series. We only have 3 more until the end of the year. How crazy is it? It's almost Christmas, everybody. But we have a differentiation in 2 weeks. Next week, we have district level perspectives on AI. And then we're going to be talking about the durable skills of the future. So really excited to have you all here. As Corey said, almost ChatGPT's birthday, but I'm going to come off sharing and I'm going to introduce our panel. I'm so excited to have this panel today. And I want to say thank you to our first panelist, Margot, who not only wrote a beautiful article around this topic, but also really has shepherded this panel today to talk about this important topic. And so I'd love for you, the same way we open every webinar is I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about yourself and then your first time using generative AI.
All right, thanks, Amanda, and hello to everyone out there in webinar world. Really happy to be here today and really happy to further engage in the dialogue around this conversation. A couple of months ago, I started exploring new opportunities, kind of a new chapter in my life, and I know I have worked in SEL program development for more than 15 years now, and I'm very passionate about it. And I noticed that a lot of the whole edusphere, as I like to say, was buzzing about AI. But in my field of social emotional learning, I noticed it didn't seem like there was as much conversation going on. Of course, once I did open the lid on that conversation, I found plenty of voices to engage with and plenty of people doing really incredible work in terms of exploring how the field of social emotional learning and mental health education can be enhanced, augmented by new and emerging AI technologies, and also thinking about what are the risks and threats that we also need to keep at the forefront of everything we do. So this has been a really exciting journey for me that I just keep wanting to go deeper and deeper into. But to answer your question, Amanda, about my first, my aha moment with realizing what these new generative AI tools may mean for the future of education was actually more like around a year ago when ChatGPT kind of exploded into the forefront. And so in the past couple of years, I had the opportunity to lead a major expansion and update to a pre-K through 8th grade health and wellness product portfolio. And a priority item that was due for a closer look on our roadmap was improving and expanding assessment options provided to teachers. So in addition to the more knowledge-based assessments we already had, we wanted to better address universal design for learning framework and offer teachers authentic skills-based assessment options. And so we had done some market research and we had pretty clear ideas of how we wanted to put this together, but I decided to take a look at how AI could possibly assist in brainstorming ideas. And of course, I was blown away by its power to meet student needs, just suggesting so many ways for students to demonstrate health-related skills and ways to adjust like those tasks based on their learning differences and preferences. So that was really my aha moment of recognizing like just the incredible power to offer exponential options for differentiation. So that's when I started really leaning in and paying attention to what was going on. And Amanda, I know you're diving way deeper into that topic in a webinar you just mentioned that's coming up in a couple of weeks of differentiation.
Yeah, no, I think the things that I love about that is that I think sometimes we might feel like we're kind of on our own here, and that like when you started looking into it and started talking about this AI SEL, you probably found the pockets where either people really didn't know how to get started and you helped them get started, or you gave them a space to have that conversation. And so I think that this is such an important one because we do not see a lot of resources around AI and SEL. And I think that this is our opportunity to do so. So thank you so much for that. And then next to Christiane, who had a busy day today, who is, an SEL specialist and an ELA coordinator. So she is doing the work, everybody. But I'd love to know a little bit more about you and then your first interaction with generative AI.
Sure. I was 23-year veteran English teacher out of New Jersey. Yes. And I love English to the point where my kids are like, what is wrong with you? Students, they're like, no one gets this excited about a metaphor. I'm like, I do. So I've always kind of, I thought that the power of language. And then I believe very firmly in meditation. I got certified as a meditation coach as well as a breathwork facilitator. And I started helping teachers before the pandemic with that, just kind of, facilitating some sessions with them and bringing it more into the classroom. I got certified as an SEL specialist, and I was doing the work for the district at the district level for the 2 high schools, and kind of aligning it with the middle schools and the elementary, because SEL used to be synonymous more with elementary, and it was kind of just fell off after middle school. It's like, oh, they're 14, they know everything. Yes, that's what they think. That's not true, though. So, I was like, I got to bring this in. So I started bringing that in a little bit more, and had a lot of fun with that. Unfortunately, my first experience with generative AI had to be last year as an English teacher. I was like reading all about it and wondering, is this like the death of the essay? Which it's not, by the way. And I found a student's response that was well above what he was able to do. And I was like, oh, maybe this is AI. And I had no idea. I went on to ChatGPT, created the account, and I just started like trying to paste his work in. And I was like, this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. I was like, this isn't right. And then I was like, oh, I got to prompt it. So I put in the prompt that I wrote. It was for a rhetorical analysis, and it didn't come up the same, but I noticed the language patterns. And I was like, oh, okay. So I had to have a very honest conversation with that student, who did, I have to say, admitted to using it. And then we had a nice little work session because I was like, I don't get it. And then he showed me how he did it. And then, and I was like, you still take the 0, but I'm going to give you the opportunity to resubmit with your own ideas because you just educated me on AI. So it worked out for both of us.
And I think that, you know what, I think the rhetoric of AI for cheating is definitely overblown. But if he taught you how to do it and you're now on this webinar, like how funny is the genesis of that? And I just wanted to point out also this idea that like SEL kind of like stopped. Like it was like, oh, we'll teach our like up to 7th and 8th graders. And then we're going to leave kids into high school, which is like way more complex and requires self-regulation and metacognition and like in ways than ever been before. So I love that this is something that you really saw as you were starting to think about the middle and secondary grades, and we're seeing that more and more commonly, which I really appreciate. And then last but not least, also doing the work. So thank you for being here too, is Annabelle, who is a principal. So everybody here, like, you know, she has a crazy job and has come and is willing to do this work with us. We really appreciate that, Annabelle. But I would love to understand a little bit more about you, and then also that first experience with generative AI.
All right, wonderful. So I am a middle school principal in Irving, Texas. It's west of Dallas, right next west of Dallas, right in the Metroplex. Our school is about 800 students, and so our district is, I would say, like mid-sized. I think we have 3,100 students all around. I'm one of 8 middle schools in the district. But I have been in education for now 14 years. This is my 14th year, and I started off as a foreign language teacher at the high school level. And then I went into instructional coaching, and it was specifically on technology instructional coaching. And so it was all about incorporating different tools, new tools, and making lessons a little more interesting. From there, I went into administration and now a principal. But my first experience with AI was March, maybe. My husband came home saying, "Hey, I found out about this new thing called ChatGPT," and kind of introduced me to it and was telling me how he was using it to create like these crazy songs, and giving it different prompts. And I thought, like, how fun would it be for a math teacher to say, "Hey, write me a rap song in this type of style for, solving two-step equations." And so I automatically took it to the education gear. And so I started playing with it and just adding in different prompts. And then my favorite thing to do, when I was on maternity leave when that happened, so I got a lot of time to play with it. But when I returned to school, I started using it myself. I like to say, sometimes I just word vomit all these things. And with ChatGPT, it polishes my thoughts and words and makes it sound so much more coherent. And so that was my first experience with it.
I love it, because I do think it's always like a Rorschach test of like, we all have different ones. And I love how your husband's like, it makes silly songs, and you're like, or it can make very silly songs about math. Like, we always kind of take it to like the place in which we're like, what could it possibly do? So I absolutely love that. And I think you have a unique perspective as well, because you're coming from someone that probably was, not probably, but you were supporting your staff to incorporate tools like this. So I love that that's something, and we'll talk about that. We'll do a live demonstration. Everyone's going to have a little bit of show and tell. We're gonna use our circle time together to do a show and tell of some great practices. And I know you're going to be showing where you brought in actually a technology that's directly created for mental health and well-being. So I think that's going to be really great to see. And so I have our kind of first big question, and we always like to start with a pretty important one. And so we know that social emotional learning is about people, right? And it is about we call it hard work, right? It is not, sometimes it can be hard work, but it always is hard work. And so the question that I have for you all is like, where is the role of AI in that type of work? Is it not? Like, where do you think that right now, considering we know that students are using these tools and that are actually using these tools for mental health and well-being, potentially more than their 5-paragraph essay. So where do you think that line is? Starting with Margot.
Well, I think for sure that there's, a lot that we're all, really just figuring out right now of exactly how this can fit in. But I think it's absolutely imperative that we do figure it out, because the technology is not going to go away. And so I think that if we don't figure out how to use generative AI as a way to personalize how we explicitly and intentionally help kids build their social and emotional competencies, then we're going to miss opportunities to differentiate, to connect with them, to speak their language. And so I think we absolutely must be experimenting and using things like the prompt library that I'll be sharing later to just see, okay, what is the new twist? If these are the approaches I've been using, and now I can, plug that into a chatbot to kind of reimagine or think about it or more personalize it for my specific students and their specific needs. yeah, I think that we'd just be completely missing the boat if we didn't start doing that right now.
What I love, and I think this is a thing we try to crystallize a lot, is this idea of like taking what you do and then seeing what's possible. And so like instead of necessarily replicating the effort that you would make, like where can I add that differentiation, that personalization? Where can I add an SEL tip or strategy in a place there wasn't one before? Because I didn't have enough time, or couldn't think about it in a different way. Because one of the things that's so great about AI is that what you said, Annabelle, I'm going to say thought partner instead of helping you with your word vomit. But I do think that that's the case, though. Like, how do I actually have it reframe my own thinking? And so, Margot, your point about that, I love that it's not about like let's just do it faster, but can we do it better? Can we do it more consistently? Can we do it in a way that actually meets our students' needs more directly, which I think is really the goal of what we want to see happen. So that's a beautiful answer. I really appreciate that. So over to you, Christiane. I mean, you're working with kids and you're working with teachers directly about this kind of work. So where do you see that line between, AI is helping, or should it not be helping?
Oh, no, it definitely is helping. I'm going to echo, what Marco said, is the idea that we have to meet with the kids where they're at, and where they're at is online, especially teens. I mean, that's where everything is. So if you don't, enter their universe, you're never going to make those connections. And that's what SEL is about. I do think that it's like more of a tool or a branch, I don't know if the word is vein or ventricle. I'm sorry if anyone is a science teacher and listening, of the heart muscle. I'm trying to use a metaphor. So it's just a little like a branch of it. But human interaction has to be at the core. It can't just be a chat bot and, they're giving advice. You need that human connection, that empathy that you can see, and feel. Whereas, a device can give you, an app can give you advice, it can give you suggestions, it can give you research, can, do a lot of good things, but it can't wrap its arms around you. It can't, really look in your eyes and be like, no, it's not resonating. Like there's something still there. Keep talking. It's only what they feed it. And again, children are not self-aware, and I'm not, trying to be derogatory. They're growing into that. So if they're not realizing that, so they need that human element, they need a teacher, or they need a parent, they need someone there to kind of help guide them. So I believe AI is very important in SEL, but it can't be a standalone or a replacement for the human contact and discussion.
Absolutely. And I mean, at this stage, like there is no replacement. And for, like you said, sometimes you need a hug. Sometimes you need to stop talking. Sometimes it actually is enough. And like, we don't need to keep pushing our students. Like we could actually say, you know what, we'll come back to this when you're ready. And that requires our ability to like know our students, to see our students, to see cues and respond to cues, and to ourselves be both self-aware and proactive in those moments. And it requires absolutely a human intervention and touch. And so I think that we're nowhere near AI replacing that part of our lives. Like, and there are things that it's going to replace pretty fast and is replacing. But like, there's like, even our conversation right now, like the ability to know like how engaged we are and like our connections to each other, because we're encouraging each other in this moment, is another example of like just being there, and like a simple smile or, encouragement that happens goes so far beyond just even the like deliberate actions we take in SEL. So I really appreciate that, Christiane. And I think the audience did as well, which is great. And then to you, Annabelle, I know that, you have to take a slightly different view, because you're now the pastoral care, like you have pastoral care, you have some politics. SEL is pretty political right now. You've got like a lot of competing priorities. So what do you think about this question?
Honestly, in the school setting, it's always going to come down to the hard work, right? That is the core of what we do, building relationships with our students, making sure that they know that they're cared for. And then it's also teaching them, what once was like character counts and responsibility, self-awareness. And all of that can be done through different AI tools. And it's at different levels, whether it's staff members using it to create prompts and then using that to connect with the students, students using it to find different ways to self-regulate. So I think there's different levels of how it can be implemented. I always preach, like, let's work smarter, not harder. Let's be efficient and effective. And at the core of it, that's where AI is coming in. It is just a tool. It will not replace the human, but it's about being efficient and effective.
I mean, I think that is a huge piece, right? Let's make it a little bit more efficient, and let's actually give time for the things that matter. Like, can we start to lower all that like noise outside the classroom and really refocus that into the hard work? I think is really a place that we can create right now with what the tools can do right now. And so I think that this is a really good question. And so before we go on to like doing a little bit of that show and tell, I do want to, I always think about this moment in time as we already have a lesson that's been learned, which is social media. We already have this moment in time in which devices went to hands of young people and social media became something that is ever present without any stopping, without any like knowledge or stopping or thought about what this really meant for young people. And right now there are 41 states that are suing Meta around their knowledge of students using these tools underage and under permission levels. And so I know that we have those questions about, we have already seen that, technology can have negative impacts on students' social, like self-image, their ability to communicate, their collaboration skills, etc. So what do you think that, like, what does that mean for this moment in time now in terms of how we support students to use these tools? If we are going to use them, how can we support them to not have the same things happen where it has this negative impact? Margot, to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a real opportunity to do a lot of work around digital literacy, digital citizenship type skill building. I think that's a natural kind of connection point for how it connects to kind of the social and emotional competency skill building. The question of whether or not tech use is contributing to the youth mental health crisis is asked a lot. And when you ask kids, there are kids who say, I find my community, I find my tribe online, like it has gotten me through some really hard times. So while for sure we know there are also lots of damaging things happening to kids' psyches because of tech and social media and constant screen connection time, there are some good things happening too. And so I think, similar, I think with that, as well as now generative AI, the opportunity for us in the field of education is to help kids to process, okay, these tools are going to be part of my life. They are part of my life. So that's an opportunity to use that as a starting place for that social and emotional competency building.
That's great. And I think this is maybe the big difference here is that like AI is a tool, whereas social media, I don't know, we could really call it a tool. It's a tool for some things, but maybe not the ones we want it to be. But that the idea of like kind of taking the lessons we've learned, but then thinking of them, moving it just slightly, like it actually is something that you need to know how to use, but like you have to be aware of like what the impact can be. So I really think that's an interesting point of view that I think can help us maybe structure the way we approach that in the classroom. So Christiane, same question to you. Like where do we keep kids safe and how do we help them be critical?
I think that we have to once again get away from the stark dichotomy that a lot of people have where it's like tech is bad or tech is good and it only fits in one box, because it's more nuanced than that and the lines are all blurred. And again, it's a tool, and I don't think a tool is good or bad. It's neutral and it's how you use that tool. However, with AI, it's only as good as its developers. So, they're human. So there's biases, there's things in there that they didn't necessarily intend. And with this generation, they grew up with all of this. So they're aware of the algorithms. Like they weren't surprised. I remember the first time I realized that my phone was listening to me. And then we did like an experiment in class with it. And they were like, yeah, they are. Like, what do you think is going on when you talk into your phone, Miss O? Like, what do you think? Like they were not okay with it, but like more aware. And a lot of them, I have to say, at the high school level, watched The Social Dilemma on their own. And, a lot of classes showed it as well. So they understand the basic idea of algorithms. So understanding that, and then now with generative AI, they are understanding that there are issues, but that isn't a means to not, or a reason to not to use it. Whereas like you said, social media, tool is not the first word that would come to mind. I mean, like you said, there are instances like my students do an action research plan, and a lot of them do a social media campaign. So they're raising awareness about their global issue. That's a wonderful tool. That's not how they see it at first. When I suggest that, like how they can use social media to promote, they're like, oh yeah. They're like, that's what influencers do. I'm like, yeah, be an influencer for good. And then they just laugh at me. So I'm okay with that. So I think the idea that, to try to just say, blanket AI is bad, we can't use it, is foolish and it's short-sighted. They need it for the jobs. They use it already. They're aware they use it. It's natural to them. So why would we take a tool away when it can offer such opportunity and such advancement for them, academically as well as social and emotionally, and just helping them succeed in life? And isn't that ultimately what education is about? Okay, so getting back to that core. So yeah, I think it's a large part of a larger conversation, but we have to get away from it's just this is good or bad, and we have to get away from that dichotomy.
Yeah, and I don't know what has happened to only have two options all of a sudden. Like we just moved away from a gray area or like nuance or balance, and it's either like AI bad, AI good, like AI doomer, AI like accelerationist. And what we're missing is like the things that make us special, our ability to actually understand complex things. If we give students and people the opportunity to actually have some cognitive dissonance, they usually can do it, but it takes effort, right? And like this idea that it's only good or bad is just it's a false dichotomy, to your point, but it is so ever present right now. It's like AI is only for cheating. Like that, like, and it is crazy because if you look at the data, students are not using it only for cheating. You know what they're using is character AI to create like avatars and buddies they hang out with during the day, and like they can talk to. Like that's what Gen Z is using these tools for, way more than doing their homework. And I think that this is something that like we cannot seem to get past that. But like to your point, like we have to. It is imperative for us to move out of that rhetoric. So to you, final to Annabelle, what do you think?
I was just thinking there's good and evil to everything, and it's all about how you use it, how you implement it, and their students, so how you teach the use of the tool, because that's what's going to make the difference, right? With any tool comes responsibility, and it's about teaching them how to do it appropriately. I wonder if, like back in the day when word or spell check came out, if this was a big thing also. Kids aren't going to know how to spell anymore. Like they're going to use that and they're going to cheat, and now their essays are going to have no spelling errors. Like, was it a big thing then? And then how did we incorporate that into just the new way of education? And so I just wonder, and I'm waiting to see more of how it gets used in the classroom, and how it gets used by students, other than just that negative connotation of students are using it to cheat.
Which is a great segue to let's actually kind of start looking into like the ways in which we can support that. But what I think, Annabelle, yeah, it was like the calculator, like the pencil, all these things. I joke that like kids, back in the days of Socrates, someone had a cheat sheet on like they chiseled their cheat sheet of their answers back in the day, on that stone tablet. But I do think that's what's really interesting is that we've had these inflection points. Maybe we've come from different eras, so maybe we don't all. Like, I don't remember what happened when spell check came in, but like I do remember when Wikipedia did, and like no kids are ever gonna like do research ever again. And that was kind of what that rhetoric was. And we've seen things shift and change. And so I think that this is another example of that. And we're so at the early stages of this. Like when Wikipedia was a year old, like no one really used it. It took a while, whereas in 2 months, ChatGPT, 100 million people used it. So it is kind of a difference in that manner too, of like just how fast this has put us into a position that we have to have an opinion, and we have to train students explicitly how to use these tools. So now we get to do our circle time. So our virtual circle time today starts with Margot, who has done a beautiful job. And shout out to Callie and Dan on my team, who have done a great job of getting these new prompts up in the library. So do you want to share your screen and actually show people how they can start using ChatGPT and other tools to start building new and amazing ways to incorporate SEL? I think you're on mute, Margot.
Sorry about that. Okay, I got so excited about sharing my screen that I forgot to unmute myself. Yeah, so for folks out there who have not yet been on the AI for Education website, and sorry if I'm looking over here because I got my screen share is over here. So on the AI for Education website, if you Google it and then look for the educator resources and go to prompt library, you'll land on this page. And you'll see that Amanda and her team have been building out all kinds of great ready-made prompts to drop into your chatbot of choice to do all kinds of awesome things with generative AI. But as of literally an hour ago, there is now a social emotional learning section, prompt library. So I've been collaborating with Amanda's team to get these ready for prime time. So there are now, and Christiane also contributed a self-care plan that she has done with her students in her classroom. So I'm going to let her talk about that prompt in a minute, but the rest of the prompts are ones that I worked on, and this is stuff that I've been thinking about okay, what are some of the common SEL strategies that we see over and over again throughout all different SEL curriculums and products and et cetera, and what are ways that AI may be able to augment or enhance those strategies. And I also, for anyone who's not super well versed in the field of SEL and is not, a lot of people out there are familiar with the CASEL framework. So if you're not familiar with the work of CASEL, they're sort of the world leading organization that's done a lot of research and advocacy work for SEL, and their framework for social emotional learning is very widely adopted. So when you come over to so their framework includes these 5 domains of social and emotional competency: self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, and social awareness. So conveniently, I have a prompt related to each of those competency areas ready for you to try out here. And so you can explore that. And when you read about them, you'll be able to tell which one is to build self-awareness, which one is to build self-management skills. But just for fun, I thought I would do my personal favorite social emotional learning competency that I'm most passionate about working on with students, which is social awareness, because I think our world just needs a whole lot more of that. So this is a prompt to customize the practice of classroom meetings using an AI chatbot. So what you can do with anything in this prompt library is basically we give a sample prompt where we instruct the AI chatbot on the persona we want them to act as when they're generating ideas and answers for us. And then you customize it with the things that are kind of bracketed off in the prompt. I am going to go ahead and actually just copy and paste this example prompt for a class meeting. So I'll read it to you. We will be telling the chatbot, you're an expert educator and instructional designer with expertise in social and emotional learning and the CASEL framework. Create a 10-minute classroom meeting agenda for my 2nd grade classroom that includes a greeting, a prompt for sharing ideas, a community building activity, and a message of the day. Focus on the topic of standing up to bullies. And down in sort of the prompt, making the prompt work for you tips, like I have a note, so bullying prevention month is in October, so maybe you want to do classroom meetings in October around that theme, and you could use this to help you. So to give an idea of what ChatGPT would do with this prompt, I'll go over to the ChatGPT tab on my browser and just paste in that sample prompt that I just read to you. And there we go. So it did everything I asked it to do. So it gave me a 2-minute greeting and a 2-minute prompt for sharing for students to share ideas with thought partners. The prompt was, imagine you see a friend being bullied on the playground. What would you do to help them? Share your thoughts with a partner. And then so on and so forth. So basically just created the exact meeting agenda that I wanted it to. So what you can do with this is then, if you love it as is on the first try, you can run with it. Or if there's something in it that you want the GPT to provide further guidance or ideas, like for example, this, imagine you see a friend being bullied on the playground. What would you do to help them? If you're not sure exactly what types of answers you're hoping for students to give you, you could ask the chatbot can you give examples of the types of answers that I might be looking for from my students? And it will provide that for you. So you can, that's just an example of the ways you can kind of dig a little deeper. Amanda, did you want me to go any deeper on this for our audience today, or is that does that give us a nice like baseline?
How fun is this though? I'm sorry, like I'm nerding out because like it's just, I don't know, like there's something about the fact that it came up with a pretty good question to ask, and that like that sharing piece just from that idea of like standing up to bullies, like, and you've crafted this really thoughtful agenda. Like I just find that so fascinating to see, especially as I was a high school teacher. And so like I would have loved to, I feel like we should do this more in high schools, but it is really, really interesting. And thank you so much, Margot, for putting these down. And as you said, if you want to come off sharing just so we can get ready for Christiane,
yeah, for sure.
What's really great is that there are 6 here, but they're all kind of in that CASEL framework, which is really the best in class in terms of thinking about those proficiencies and competencies that we want students to build. But as you can see, like there is such a wide variety of ways in which we can use these tools to help us get a starting place for like a pretty good classroom agenda or mindfulness practice or cooperative learning activity that really has students work together in ways that go beyond just the normal. So I think that was really awesome. And thank you so much, Margot. And I know we're going to have so many people that are going to love this prompt library. So thank you for shepherding it in. Okay, Christiane, I love when we had our first little conversation. And also I think, Christiane, we're probably very similar in our approach to some things. We definitely have the same sense of humor. But I loved when we first talked, you were like, I did this with my students and I did it around self-care. And I think that this is such an enormous piece, especially with our students transitioning out of high school, of like, how do they know, like, how are they getting ready for that next step where they really are going to have to own their self-care? So I'd love for you to share what you've done with your students.
Sure. So this was the lesson that I started with them. And, I wanted to show them that the ChatGPT could help them personally, emotionally, and use again as a tool, not for cheating. And then when I said we're going to use ChatGPT for our do now for the whole week, we have this like little mini thing. They're like, what? They're like, you're going to make us write essays? I was like, no, we're going to talk about ourselves. You get to pick a topic. So then they were like, all right, whatever. So they they were like, all right, we'll humor her because she's way too excited about this, because I didn't know how it was going to work. So I'm like, all right. So I explained to them, I came up with this prompt is that when I did it live with the students, is you're a mental health expert working with teens to build a healthy lifestyle. Provide a list of whatever focal point and I use the word buzzword, specific buzzword or trend to help my 12th graders build healthy habits. So if you wanted to look at the actual chat that came up here, it was just to model it for my students. So, we had already throughout the year, because I'm obviously as an SEL specialist, I talked to them about self-care. So, during different times, especially as seniors, like when they were getting their college applications done and it's the fall and they're going to homecoming and they're exhausted and staying up to 3 a.m. And I'm like, all right, we're going to focus on, how to get better sleep, or we're going to focus on time management. And we'd have little powwows about that. When AI came out, I was like, why can't AI do that? I was like, that's so cool. So I kind of gave them suggestions. I started off with this table for them. So I'm giving it to you exactly how I gave it to them last year. Like if you're wanting to eat better. And I said, I'm not saying anyone in here needs to lose weight. I said, I don't want to hear that. Like, I want to lose 15 pounds. I said, I want to hear about healthy habits. Like maybe you need to incorporate more fruits and veggies. So the other thing was, we talked about all the different styles. And a lot of kids, I said, feel free to go and Google something first. Like when I said there's all these different healthy lifestyle diets, they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, Atkins, paleo, vegan, clean eating. And they're like, I don't know what paleo is. I don't know what Mediterranean is. I'm like, look it up. See, they're like, can we use AI? I'm like, yes, fine. Use AI, use Google, use any tool that you want. So, I gave them some suggestions, same thing with like movement and exercise. And again, a lot of them are athletes. So it was like, you could, you're in your off season, what specific drills could you use? What kind of conditioning could you do? And we talked about, just overall mental health. Obviously, there's certain times of year they're more stressed. In the winter, it's colder in New Jersey. The weather's always crazy. You have people with seasonal affective disorder. So looking at depression, we did a whole unit on what I call ants, which if you're in social emotional learning, it's the automatic negative thoughts. So I was like, oh, I see an ant crawling on you. So some of them were really like, I need to control my inner voice. It's like yelling at me. So I was like, okay. So I put in some, suggestions, and then the students added things in, and they added in sleep, focus, study skills, and money management, which I was like, oh my God, I'm so proud of you about money management. Like I should have thought of that as the adult, but no, they did. And then they came up with the popular trends or the buzzwords. So, I gave them the doc where they could pick anything. And I said, I said, this is not about the output. It is about the process. So every day they had to do something. So, the first day they had to pick what their focus was and the trend. And I said, and if it's not in the box or you just thought of something and you don't want to share it with the group, that's fine. Do it yourself. And then Tuesday, drilling down with 2 more questions, refining it. So like if you want to do paleo, but you hate, chicken. What do I do if I hate chicken? So again, what other recipes could we use? What other things could we do? And then adding more details about works for them. And they really liked that personalization. And then some of them were kind of like, I kind of get why they're saying AI could be a tutor, because it's a dialogue and it's teaching me, but I'm learning that like maybe my question wasn't clear, or maybe I need more information. And then they did a reflection on what they thought, which I apologize is not hyperlinked, which I will hyperlink, where they had to reflect on the process and what they got out of it. And then on Friday, we shared. And I have to say, for doing something off the cuff and not knowing how it was going to work. And again, they are seniors, and I'm not afraid to look dumb in front of them. I mean, come on, I'm Gen Z, I'm a Gen Xer. I look dumb anyway. So I don't mind playing around with them. And they had a lot of fun. And one of the things at the end of the year that they said, because I always asked for reflection on my teaching, the class, the content, that kind of thing, they all went back to the fact that you gave us other ways to use, AI, or they gave us other ways to take care of ourselves. It wasn't just the academic. You didn't tell us, well, get off your social media, set a timer. You suggested, websites or influencers that are health practitioners. They're like, you met us where we needed to be. And honestly, like I'm getting through this without crying. That like in June, I was like bawling, reading all of them, like, this is why I do this is why. Even though finals were horrible and it was pouring during graduation, reading those reflections made it worthwhile. And that really got me on the kick. Like, we can use AI for this, not again as an end all be all and the way to answer all of our problems, but as a tool, as another way that we can reach kids, that we can give them resources. And again, I'm a Title I district, or, on one side of town, we're completely Title I, the 2 buildings that I work in. So they don't have resources. When they realized that ChatGPT was free, they were like, are you serious? Like, anybody can use this? I was like, yeah, there's no subscription right now. And then when it came out I said, you still have the free version. So I like the equitable focus as well. So, some of my students who don't, who have monetary issues, financial issues, still could get self-care. They still could ask for resources. And again, I think as educators, we need to embrace that, because it's not going away. It's only going to evolve more. And we want to be part of that evolution with our students.
Thank you so much. And we have a prompt that also we've developed from this activity. So one version is for a teacher, like lesson planning and actually potentially building one for students, and then one for students to use on their own that is reflected in the great work you have there. And I think it's so great that, you are willing to, like, I do not think you look dumb. I think you look vulnerable in ways that matter. Like you're willing to try things and fail in productive manners with your students, and you actually foregrounded that with this experiment. And I think that that really makes a big difference in terms of their commitment to trying as well. And it gives you some space to use these as teachable moments when it doesn't work, so to speak. So now we have Annabelle is actually going to show us a tool. And so we're gonna do this piece. And if you have to leave, we totally understand. We love having you here. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna keep rolling, and then we're going to like have a speed round around like what we can think about for teachers themselves and their self-care. So Annabelle, you want to share your screen and talk about Alongside? You're also on mute.
There we go. So Bowie Middle School is one of 4 schools in Irving ISD that piloted this program back in March. So our students started using it last school year and then came back this school year, and we did the rollout again, and they're using it. So Alongside is a program that allows students to talk to the llama, is what they call it, but it's a chat bot where they can talk to the chat bot about anything, and it uses that AI language model to respond to them. But this is more in a safe space because it was created by doctoral clinicians who have taught the llama to respond with certain strategies that are research-based and that could actually help the students. I was trying to pull up our training that we did for our teachers so that they could know, like, these are the programs that Alongside is equipped to address. A lot of them go back to just issues with friendships, families, peers. And so as the students talk to the llama, it determines what it is that they're struggling with, what the issue is, and gives them strategies for it. And so, they try to say, like, it doesn't really use a lot of AI. It's not pulling information from, just anywhere on Google, but it is developed by the clinicians. And so a lot of the AI is put more into like the validating responses. There's journals and other things that they can do on the app, but our students here at Bowie really have enjoyed being able to use the llama. For the students, like we said, they grew up with technology. It's natural for them. Many of them actually prefer to talk and chat because it's non-judgmental. They don't have to worry about it leaking out. When they log into the chat, it will tell them, like, this information is completely private until, or, unless you say that you're harming yourself, harming others, or abuse. And so at that point, we do get alerts. On the administrative profile, we have the alerts area. But one thing that I wanted to show was the dashboard. Like I said, our school is about 800 students. We try to use this tool as a preventative measure and to make sure that we are acting before our students are, further down or spiraling. And so out of our 800 students, we've had about half of them log in, and then we have another 294 students that are continuing users. Our counselors here on campus like to see this dashboard here to see what are the issues that our students are talking about. That helps them customize the lessons that they do when they go into the classrooms. And so overall, to me, it's revolutionary the way that they are using AI in a very controlled way, in a safe space for students. And so I've really enjoyed piloting this program.
And so Annabelle, is Alongside right now is in beta, right? So it is free?
So Alongside right now, I think has moved on to charging, but one of the things I'm trying to get to it, they do have a demo up. And so anyone who wants to try it out can go into just their website, alongside.care. And when they go on there, they can try the app and see what that conversation is like.
That's great. And so what I'd say is, like, we always try to support like the different levels. What I would say is that this is a great example of an AI tool that is traditional AI in the sense of it's not generative AI primarily, but it's generative AI in meaningful ways around that validation. And so that's really great to see because I would not give a chatbot, like a generative AI chatbot, this much license for all kinds of reasons. But if it's used in productive manners and responsible ways, it can make that more sticky for the student where they actually do feel like it's heard. And as someone that has built, I know we talked to everybody, but like my last role, we actually built a well-being tool and did a whole bunch of research. And it does show that so much of the work that we need to do is on the preventative side. And like just having students, even if they have one person, the research shows one person within a school community that they know that cares about them and they go to, that is enough. It only has to take one. And that something like this as a proxy to that one that is clear, it's clear because, you know, you have, you know, 80% of your students that use the tool have used it more than once. That's a really great way. And then we see is the augmentation we talked about earlier of like your staff now using these tools to go deeper and to do better in terms of actually meeting students where they are. So I really love that. And thank you so much, Annabelle, for being so open to showing like your data, which we really appreciate. So we're going to come to our last question, which will be our speed round. If we can come off sharing, Annabelle, if you don't mind, that's perfect. And so, you know, we talked about at the very top that like we often talk about well-being and social emotional learning kind of like being for kids and students, but we know that like it absolutely matters for our educators too. And so a speed round, you have 30 seconds, starting with Margot. Like, what do you think is like your best tip or best strategy for actually using AI? With you know, for teacher self-care or teacher mindfulness or teacher social emotional learning or care?
Yeah, well, I think there's so many ways, and saving obviously them time from all the things that are like making teaching not fun for them is one way that I see a huge benefit right off the top. Of course, then also like all those different chats, self-care plans, all those things, those are things that would be beneficial to adults as well. So I think that's another thing. And then lastly, like for example, what Annabelle just shared, and I got really excited when I learned about alongside and like thinking, and I didn't even realize how in the field of psychology, chatbots have been researched for actually decades. And that, you know, I didn't really ever think about the fact that for people who have a lot of social anxiety or maybe skeptical about therapy, it's actually a really good starting point, a really good entry point. And you know, for teens who might have trouble talking to adults. So that gets a little off topic from what it can mean for adults, other than the fact that these tools, in the same ways they can be helpful for students, they can be helpful for adults. And I think that's just, yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, Margot.
SEL is a lifelong journey that we're all on. It's not something that happens in school and you're done. Like we're always building our social and emotional competence throughout our lives. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Cassian?
I definitely, you know, AI for all the same reasons that Margot said, and just in general, what it can do as an adult. And like when I did my first presentation for my district on AI, for the high school teachers, it was more the non-academic stuff that they wanted to go and play with. And it was like, you know, obviously they want to be more productive and this is going to save them time with lesson plans and assessments. But then when I was like, oh, we can help you come out with a workout schedule. You don't like to run? Tell it what you wanted to do. If you wanted to eat. And they all thought that was great. They were like, this is amazing. Like this can help me. The other thing I would want to add on is that there is now a lot of AI going into wearables. And I am not against that. I actually had a meditation client ask me, they're like, isn't that against like all your hippie stuff? Like, you know, isn't it supposed to be just you? And I was like, no. I was like, I honestly, when I first started meditating, used the Muse band, which helps, you know, regulate like your breathing. And it's telling you, you know, whether you're on par with like the program, it's sensing, you know, using biofeedback. I was like, now they have AI. I just got a notice for AirTags. That, you know, how they're looking to use AI. And to be perfectly honest, my mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's last year. So we got the AirTag, so we always knew where she was. One of the new features that's coming out is that you can get an AirTag that's wearable that does your heart rate as well. But I can get the data. So if my mom's heart rate is going up, I can, you know, I'll get an alert saying she's becoming anxious. So it's like, okay, well, then maybe I need to call my dad, or maybe I need to call her, you know, or do something. And I know some people are very nervous about, you know, privacy issues, as we should be. All of this, as Amanda, you've said, is very new. But I believe in the next couple of years, the tech that's going to come out and the awareness that we can bring to the body-mind connection for adults especially, and I think it should be more geared to adults than children right now, because we can, you know, have more reasoning power. I think that's so powerful and innovative, and it's going to make such a difference if we use it in that way. And if that's, you know, how it's talked about as opposed to the doomsday prophecies. So I think it's a wonderful feature for adult SEL as much as I do it as it is for kids.
Absolutely. There's so much great there. And then finally, so Annabelle, you're going to take us home. Same question.
Okay, so honestly, I tell people, like, just play with it. The limits are your creativity. If we're talking about SEL for adults, what they can do with it. For me, family is a huge thing. I have 5 kids, from the baby, she's about to be 1, to a 6-year-old, 8-year-old, 8-year-old, 12-year-old. So we're always busy, but one of our favorite things is like bedtime stories. And so ChatGPT is our favorite. I'm like, okay, you tell me one thing you want in the story. You tell me one thing you want in the story. You tell me one thing. And then we put together a story and I read it to them. And that becomes like our routine, and the kids love it. And I'm like, that's such a bonding time. It's the like just bringing us together. So that's super easy. On the teaching side of it, I use it in my data chats with teachers all the time. When we're creating our reteach lessons, they're like, oh, we could do this. And I'm like, use ChatGPT. And I just like will show them, like, type these prompts in. And so for them, that's like, oh, because that takes pressure off of them to have to recreate things. And so the ability to just imagination and creativity, put it in, see what happens. So that would be my advice.
Oh man, well, our superheroes wear all kinds of clothes. And so the fact that you have 5 children and a principal and are spending this time with us, oh my goodness gracious, thank you so much. And I just want to say thank you to this wonderful panel. There's so much good here. I think that what we've kind of underlined is that the limits are our own at this stage, in the sense of how we can start thinking about these tools and knowing that they need to be responsibly done. And as Christiane said, let's start with adults first, and then like find those spaces in which they can help students and use things like us alongside that are designed to be used with students and are built on evidence bases and are only using generative AI in small spaces. And so I think that this is such a really great opportunity for us all. And the challenge that we always like to do is like, go try these things with your staff, yourself, etc. And I just want to say thank you so much to our panel, Margot, for pulling this together, and to doing our prompt library, Christiane and Annabelle for doing this work with us and being here, considering you are practitioners and I know how busy you are. And I also want to thank our audience. Thank you for always being a part of this, sharing your thoughts and best practices. We got such good feedback already. And I just hope that everyone has, whether it's a good morning, a good night, or please go to bed. Thank you for joining us. And we look forward to having you here the next time. Thank you, everybody. And thank you to our panel.